narrow, twisting labyrinths, wide castle corridors, intricate rooms with fully playable 1-inch spaces. You can build all of that and more with our Dungeon Passages collection. Hi, I'm Nate, and I'm going to give you a builder's masterclass in Dungeon Passages. If you're not already familiar with these pieces, I highly recommend watching our hands-on Dungeon Passages video first because it gives a great overview of the basics of the system. And now, let's dive in and take a look at some advanced building techniques. All right, so let's start by looking at how passages connect to rooms, because generally you're going to be using passages to run off of rooms, connect them, interconnect them, make labyrinths from them. But generally they will terminate in a room in one form or other. All right, so at the base level, boom, you're putting passages up against the side of your room. You throw a door in there, and off you go. That's basic, right? So let's say we use this as our entrance, right? We're having our dungeon. We'll put some daises in there. This is our entrance in, and from here we're gonna branch off into a dungeon. So let's start here. We'll spin this around. Let's add. All right. So let's say we're gonna start our dungeon here. All right. So we've got our entrance in. They're gonna come in. The players are gonna go out here and explore. So from here, once again, we could just put a plain old passage there, but that's not so exciting. Let's try a little bit crazy. Let's offset it here. So because this is going to cause a bunch of problems, which we're going to have to solve. So the first quote unquote problem here is, so we're lining up all of the squares here. The walls don't line up, and that bothers some people. There's a couple of things you can do. One, you can put a narrow door in there, sort of mask it. If you want to mask it even further, you can put full-size door in there. That kind of helps mask it. You can cheat and offset your squares by 3/8 of an inch, which might be even worse, although it does line up all these walls. Or, first thing we can do is we just replace all these with passage walls, right? So we're going to take our regular dungeon walls out. We're going to take a floor here, and then we're just going to drop a passage wall there, right? So now if we replace this whole side wall, we're going to place this with a floor and this with a straight. We put straight walls in. If I could find a straight wall. All right, now all of our walls line up, all of our squares line up. There's harmony in the universe once again. But let's get even more interesting right now. Let's throw, because then from here we can just build like regular, put a corner, an intersection, whatever. Let's throw an intersection right here to see what happens when we crash into this wall. So let's pull this guy out, and let's go back to this, right? Pretend we were doing the same build here. We've got our narrow door here, right? So from here, we want to have a passage going out and an immediate intersection, because that is interesting and a challenge. So let's import this. So we can just take floor here. All right, so we have a passage going out, a passage going this way. So I'm just taking a regular passage wall, and we're just slamming it right up against the side of this wall, and off we go, building away, and then we can keep making passages and interconnect like that. And so now all these walls are lining up nice and clean. If we wanted to go back to the passage wall on the outside, we can do that same trick we had before. Fly these guys back in. So right, again, these are floors with passage walls on the outside, and we're having a collision over here. So what we're going to do is where these two walls collide. Anytime you're having two straight walls colliding, you've put was the convex or the concave? I don't know. I guess the other one was concave. So the convex corner. Just swap it with a convex corner. So we're going to pop these straight walls out. Throw a little convex there where the intersection. Right, intersection is happening. Boom, boom, boom. And put a 1/2 inch here. The easy way you can do this is map everything out. Just throw the floors down first, and then it's kind of easy to figure out where your walls want to go on the outside of those, right? You're always just putting it on the outside of the floors. All right, so now we have a nice intersection here. We can pop our door in there. We can also sort of at any time with any of these passages, we can replace any of the floors with, especially a floor like a portcullis or something, right? So we could put a portcullis here because it looks cool. But let's save that further. We're going to make this passage. We'll have a portcullis going down that way, make it lock something for the players to discover. And we'll just pop that door in here. Boom, off we go. So there's a couple different ways you can sort of do the same trick anytime you want to run into a thing. You can just go on the outside. If you run into trouble, use basically passage walls as one of the outside walls of your room, and that should get you back into working with the passages. Let's look at, so this is sort of if you're driving passages into a wall, into a room. Let's look at if we're going to put passages on the outside of a room, like parallel versus perpendicular. So let's fly this in. What do I need? Pop you out too. All right, so we got a big long passage to work with here. So let's say instead of putting a room at the end here, let's say we want to put a room like coming right off the side of this passage, and we don't want to do. You can anytime you want, you can just put we can do like a T intersection and build a room that way. But we want to get it like flush right up against this. So the really simple trick you can do is start here. Let's pop out two of our straight passage walls. And then right after we took those, we're going to take the 1x1 corners, put a pair of those and a 2x1 floor, right? And line that all up. So now these walls are in line here and these walls are coming off. So then we can pop a door. In this case, we'll put a cell door in there. So now we have a nice door in line. And from here, you can build a room off, right? So we could make this into a little tiny jail cell, right? We have the manacles hanging off there, right? This can be like a little tiny jail cell. And you could repeat this, right? You could make a couple of little jail cells along a hallway, which would be kind of a classic build. You can use the same technique if we wanted to get longer. Why don't we just pop out? Let's go, boom, let's make this bigger. Slide that out. And you put, do we have any 2x1s? Put a couple of 2x1s here, boom, boom, boom. And then a wall here, right? You can build from that. Bump, bump. You could slide this door over, change it, whatever. But you fundamentally just sort of build off using the backside of the dungeon walls as the passage wall. You can build off from there. Even works if you want to do it into let's say we wanted to make this a secret door, right? Let's pop this off. Ooh. Let's pull this whole thing out. We're going to do basically the same gag. Let's put just that one secret door. So we have our secret door wall. This is not the cool remastered one yet. The remastered one is even more secret. But we're going to do, instead of using the 1x1 dungeon corners, we're going back to, these are the convex passage corners. We're popping a pair of those on either side, just like it would be a regular intersection, and then build the secret door in line there, put these out, and now we have a little secret passage coming off there. So this is essentially, we're just replacing one passage wall with secret door wall. And what you would probably want to do in play, so your players can discover this, you'd fly this out as one little unit, and just have the two passage walls on there. And if they discover it, just do the swap on the fly, so they won't metagame. We have everything covered there. The other thing you could do instead of using the corners to build our door here, boom, right? Instead of using the corners, those are sort of delineating the sides of your walls, right? We're limited by whatever size those are at. You can use straights, right? So you can make it as large as you want based on straights, and then you can even do full-sized walls, right? So we can make this a full-size wall here, full-size wall here, full-size floor here, and build it like that, right? And then just build sort of as much dungeon room as you need to build. You just build the backs of those walls up against the passage and build out from there. And one more trick before we look at making corridors more interesting. If we want to go diagonal, there's a real quick way to do that. Just open this up. We're going to take our large curve, vaulted curve there, pop that in line. And then you can just build passages for right up against it, right? So you can do a fun, easy little gag is do like a little 1-inch passage and one of the LED alcoves, and you can just pop that up against. There's a little kind of gap here, but I don't think your players are going to mind. So you can go like that, or you can just build, right? Take it and build a passage and then take another one on the other side, boom. And then you can start building another room here, and it gets you a nice, cool 45-degree passage very easily. All right, so now let's go look at how we can make our actual passages more interesting. Look at some alcoves and the like. All right, now let's look at some of the ways you can take a boring plain corridor and spruce it up. So of course, like we covered in the hands-on video, you can swap out any of these floors. You could put in a rubble floor or a trap. You could swap in any of these walls with a magnetic wall and put a magnetic trap. And of course, you can take a wall and put it at the end of the corridor if you want like a piece of interest. So this is from the Forsaken Temple. So you could put that in, and now we have like an interesting thing at the end of our passage. But let's get a little spicier than that. Well, we'll put this guy in here. We'll keep a little snake spice in here. All right. So let's put some alcoves in here, because I like when there's things to discover down the passageway. So we're going to pop off these walls, and we're going to treat this just like we were making an intersection. So I'm taking a couple of the convex corners, or the inside corners, popping them under, and got a 2x1 floor there. And we do the same thing on the other side. Bum, bum, bum. And once again, the easy thing to do is you can always pave down your floors and then put your walls around once you figure out what you're doing. So one of the things that looks really great is you take our LED alcoves and you can put those on either side, right? Then you can do a couple of those punctuating the corridor along the way, and they're neat little spots to hide if you're sneaking in, or you could also put a little treasure in there or something. You could also use these same bits to put the plinth arch, right? So that fits in really nicely, and you could put a little thing on there, or you could flip it on this side and it's magnetic, so you could pop a magnetic accessory on there. You could also do a fun little gag where this is like, you could have something behind it, right? So there's the thing you have to do, and this becomes like a secret door, right? You can lift this up and reveal an alcove, or just have a passage leading off from there onto something else. So it's a neat way to kind of do a secret door one way or another. Or you could put a lever on there, a magnetic lever, and use that to just trigger it, and it slides up, something like that. You can also put it at the end of, I think it's a really nice little place to put any sort of accessories or point of interest, something in there. Also, you can set these alcoves further back. They'll keep it more interesting if you kind of make the passage longer, any sort of option like that. Another thing you can do, once again, using the same passage bits, is you can put any 2x2 floor in there. So in this case, we're going to take the LED socket floor and pop that in, and then put two of the concave corners on the outside there. Boom. And now we have a neat little alcove here. Brazier, you could put any of your LED bits in there. You could put a trapdoor floor with some stairs down. Let's do that. Wow, those magnets are not messing around, huh? All right, so you can stairs down, so that becomes a little spot to discover some stairs down, something like that. Another fun bit you can do is you can use the same trick with any of the walls. So in this case, we'll just take an LED wall, we'll pop that in there, And in this case, we don't need you could double up with the walls, but it's a lot of wall in one place. You can just take the 1x1 passage walls, the short little passage walls on there, boom. And now you have a thing. You can also do the same with a magnetic wall. And of course, you can put a door in and the like. So I like punctuating passageways with little alcoves, little points of interest. So another thing we could do is we just pop off one of these walls, and we're going to fly in a narrow passage, right? So this is our original old one-piece narrow passages, right? One solid piece, and they are exactly 2 inches wide, so they fit perfectly in there. So from here, you can start building, right? You could then do a run of narrow passages and have this go anywhere you want to go, connect to another passage and the like. You could also just take one of the walls, slide it in there, and now you have another little alcove, another way to build a narrow alcove, right? We could put treasure or a weapon rack in there or something. Now we have an interesting little alcove. Another simple trick you can do, especially because we have a wall here, is you can, let's start it over here actually, and then we'll migrate over there. So we can start here. You just take out 2 walls, and you can then take any corners that you have, right? So in this case, there's 2 of the vaulted magnetic corners, and you can pop those in line with your passage and make a neat little alcove, right? So you can do that. You can put them on either side or staggered or whatnot. So it's a way to, once again, make another interesting little nook, something to discover along the way. We could put, treasure or a node or something magnetic attaching to these, or the manacles or the like. Also, what I was good before is you can have these, if you're using an interesting wall at the end, you can have these line up the wall, and it makes like a little cul-de-sac room at the end. Oh, here's one other fun one I forgot when we were doing the basic alcove. So we can take this. This is another great one. The really, really fun one to put in this, using the same sort of intersection style one, is take our construct walls, right? Pop those guys in there on either side of the hallway. And this will get your players, they will stop here for a long time and try and figure out what to do about these construct walls. And of course, these guys pop out. We have the animated versions you can pop in if they want to attack. If you want to make it a little scarier, just pop these things back. Let's go back a full passage length, right? So put it like this, and that's right. Now they're set back, so you can't see them until you're really close to the edge. So the players sort of going forward, and then they see that. Now it's a whole debate, like it's, what's going to trigger these things? Are they coming out of the wall? So these look, they're pretty fun. When you drop that in there, definitely it's going to get people's attention. So those are a couple of ways you can spruce up your corridors. Let's look at now how you could make wider or narrower passages. So let's look at narrow first. All right, now let's take a look at narrow passages, right? We've seen standard 10-foot wide passages. Let's look at 5-foot wide. So just fundamentally, instead of using a 2x2 floor in between passages, we're taking 2 passages and we're putting a 2x1 or even a 1x1 floor between, and we go narrow. The disadvantage with these is they're very hard to actually play in. What you can do is you can pop one of the walls off as the characters are going through. So if you need to gain access to one side, you can pop off the walls to actually access your minis, because it's really hard to fit them in there. It's one advantage too. We also have their one-piece narrow passages, and those are a little tiny bit wider because they're a full 2-inch footprint. They have there's an extra 1/4 inch of space, and it's actually wider than a 1-inch square, but still really tough to get minis in here and a little tough to work with. But we're going to look at building narrow passages using the passage walls. So they build just like the regular width passages. You get to a corner, you just have a convex and a concave, right? We explode that thing out. You just build exactly the same, except you're using just a single width floor all the way through. Same with intersections and the like. Where things get interesting is if you want to transition from a narrow to a regular size passage. So if you're doing it perpendicular, it's pretty easy. You just, where your end is, let's do this, boom. You take the convex corners, boom, boom, line up your convex corners, and then you build your regular passage along like such. Right, so you can just go in anywhere you want. You just use the pair of little convex, and that gets you off sides. If you're going to go head on, is where things get interesting. So let's look at a couple of options. First option is you can take convex and straight and build like that, and boom, and build from here, and build your passage out from there like such. This might irk some people where you're missing this little where the wall connects. That's off by a little bit. So the easy fix there, and this is going to sort of work kind of anywhere you have this offset by one wall's width, you can do this. So we're going to pull this guy out. We're going to pull this out. We're going to put a regular short wall here. And then instead of having the floor go all the way out, we're going to use a 1x1 dungeon wall here. So we're going to put the 1x1 dungeon wall like that. So these line up really nicely. We're going to fill that with a 1x1 like that. And then we'll slide this out. We're sliding the wall to meet like that, and then we put another 1 inch like this. So now you build your passages all the way out, and now this is on the inside, so everything lines up smoothly. So that's one way to do it. Another thing, if you want to center it, which looks kind of cool, right? This looks, I like this, right? This is nice and clean, but it's really kind of neat if we have the thing sort of narrow down like a funnel. So one way you can accomplish that is to if you take these guys, and so we're taking our convexes, putting it up against like this, and then we're just going to run our passage right up against it. So we have a tiniest bit of overlap here, right? There's like a 1/16 of an inch where it's sticking out. But somehow for me, it's pleasing, even though we're offsetting our squares are now offset by 1/2 inch, so maybe that'll mess up your whole map, whatever, but it's kind of pleasing. And you can use any of the freestanding pillars, right? You can use these ones like that to make it looks like really cool. Look at that entrance, right? This is like a fun looking way to sort of get into this narrow passage. So even though we're offsetting our squares by 1/2 inch, I really like visually, it's very pleasing, and I can adjudicate anything on the table. If we're off by 1/2 inch, we'll make it work. Similarly, if we're trying to connect into a room, we can do a very similar approach, right? So let's say we're trying to terminate magnets. Let's say we have a little thing that looks like a catacomb here, right? All right, so we got these ossuary nooks. He doesn't want to participate. There you go. Ossuary nooks in the vaulted walls around things. So like the cool little like catacomb chamber. We've got these narrow halls too. So one thing we can do is the same exact trick, right? So I'm going to actually take this bullet out. I'm going to replace it with, as you can see, I'm putting a one by one wall, 1x1 floor, 2x1 floor, corner, and then I'm going to slide this whole thing back in line, right? We're off by half the spoon, like this. All right, so now that lines up really nice and clean. you could also, if you want to do the sort of offset, once again, I really like the offset. So we're going back off a 1/2 inch again, but I think it might be worth it for the visual payoff. So we're going off 1/2 inch, dropping in. We can put a regular floor here. So here's where we've got a little bit of gap on either side. You can take a regular door, just pop a regular door in there. That fills that all up, and now you have a nice door to get into your little catacomb. Or if you want the visual flair, you can take these corner pillars. They fill that space really nicely. You could also use the gargoyle ones or the snake ones. It feels like that. So like that's it's sort of a visually pleasing way to transition in. If you don't mind the little 1/2 inch offset, that's pretty neat. But generally, if you need to have everything perfectly on the grid, using the 1 inch dungeon wall gets you a way to get in a nice clean bit there. If you need to terminate these walls, the easiest way to do it, fast and easy way, is take a concave, you throw a 1x1 floor in there, you throw a 1 inch wall, and boom, you got a little thing like that. If you want to make it deeper, let's put a set of stairs in there, right? So boom, do that. I'm going to build it without the wall so you can see it, and then we'll put the wall on. All right, so these are our stairs. Maybe these are leading down into the catacomb, and then we'll put a wall on that. Something like that. If this missing wall is irking you, you know how we're going to fix that? Same as before. We're going to go to the 1x dungeon wall. So I'm popping this out. I'm going to bring back our 1 inch dungeon wall. We're taking the 1 inch passage wall. We're knocking it on like that. Slide in there, and boom. Now everything lines up nice and clean. There's harmony in the universe again. And those are, you can kind of carry around. It's like you can kind of pre-build using the 1x1s and the 1 inches. You can kind of like pre-build little end caps to pop around, or you can use it as like, for revealing for a secret door or something like, or the end of a little tiny. You can do the same gag we were doing the alcoves in the wider passage. You could do here using the little convex corners and pop these in and have the little tiny alcoves where you could put more bodies or something if you're trying to do like an ossuary nook sort of situation. All right, now let's look at wide corridors. All right, so here we have double wide passages, right? We're 20 feet wide. Very simple to make these. Instead of just a wall on the other side of the floor, you're popping off and you have one floor on each, right? Boom, and you're building just like you're building any other passage, except you're putting 2 floors in between. And obviously you could transition very easily from wide to narrow by just taking a row of floors out, pushing this in. If you wanted to go parallel and transition, you just drop the corners in and go back out. These feel very much like castle corridors. Something about the wide open stone corridors feel like castle corridors. So I put some of the magnetic tapestries from our city builder system on the walls here to kind of make it castle-y. One fun, easy thing you can do with these, just like any passages, you can put walls in there to dress off. So this is just a pair of dungeon walls at the end to sort of terminate this hallway. We can make it feel a little more castle-y. I'm going to put a pillar, the vaulted wall there to give it a little castle decor, and then we're just taking 1 inch dungeon walls, 1x1 floor, popping in, boom, we have a nice little termination there. So also, since we got these nice big long corridors, we want to put a double door in there, right? So that feels very castle-y, or just big corridor. We have a chance to put a big double door. So we're just going to drop double door in. Now we have a grand entrance in our grand hallway. If we want to make it feel maybe a little more grand, let's rotate it this way by offsetting it a little, having it inset. It makes it sort of feel more majestic. Or we could just push it to the end of the hallway. This is going to lead to like the big throne room. So let's just go all the way back here. These in. Look at that. Now that's our big entrance to the throne room. So now let's finish out this end of the corridor. So we're going to come over here. Let's get kind of castle-y. So these are the curved dungeon walls. they feel kind of castle-y, right? They feel kind of like a tower or sort of inside a tower maybe. So you put those there. If these corners are bothering you the way it's sort of offset by one, you can just throw some pillars in there. When in doubt, just like throw some pillars in there and it'll patch anything up. Something like that. Now that has a kind of a good looking end. Let's dress this thing up one step further. Rotate. Okay. Let's go here. Let's do an alcove similar to what we were doing with a regular passage. We can do an alcove here. Same thing. We're going to make, because it's a wider passage, let's make it nice to start with a nice wide. So we're going to pop these walls off. Let's up here, something like this. Like that. And I'm using, so these are the dungeon LED, the curved LED corners. I'm going to pop those in because those torches feel kind of castle-y, something like that, right? So we now have a nice little nook sort of offset. This is going into the throne room. We have this at the other end. And let's pop out, because we have this floor. The nice thing is these guys have a little cutout, so you can nook a 2x2 in there. So let's take advantage of that. And we can put like some drainage. This is the way they can sneak into the castle, right? Coming through the drain pipe, whatever. Or we could make it overt. Maybe it's maybe some stairs down. This is the way they go down to the dungeon. Or maybe we want to get mystical, right? So there. Let's pop an obelisk in there. Something like that. One other thing we could look at is let's get a doorway out of here, right? So let's do a small door. So one thing we could try is let's make a cool, this looks really castle, right? So we're taking, so deconstruct this for you. So we have two of the convex corners popped in at the end here, little 1 inches, taking the freestanding, that portcullis arch, right? Because that thing looks really neat, right? This could lead to maybe the barracks or something. And then we're putting these into the corner to sort of having pillars everywhere, just and dresses up these majestic halls, feel more majestic. If these are bothering you, right? Once again, we're offset by a bit. If these are bothering you, do you know what the fix is? It's going to be 1 by 1 walls again. So what we'll do is we'll pop this out. Put a 2 by 2 floor there. 1 by 1 dungeon walls. Bump, bump. Something like that. And then I put this guy here. Oh, you know what we can do while we're here? Well, before we're thinking, we can take a little LED alcove. Looks really neat there. The way that sort of steps in, double step in, very sort of decorative and ornamental for no apparent reason. I kind of like how that flows. Or we could go back to our portcullis. We put that here, and then we just put passage walls on either side, and off we go. We can build from there. So there's something very nice and wide about these. The big corridors feel epic. Feels like it's a nice scene, and plenty of room to stage miniatures in here, right? And you've got your full squares all the way around, full 1 inches everywhere. So lots of rooms that you can do a lot with a little bit of corridor here. All right. So now, speaking of full squares, let's look at doing an entire room using the passage walls. So finally, let's look at using the passage walls to do rooms. You don't just have to use them for passages. You can use them for rooms. Why would you do that, you may ask? 2 reasons. 1, with the walls outside the floors, you have every square is playable. And 2, it lets you do some sort of wildly shaped rooms. It might be easier to do some weirdly shaped rooms than you would be able to do with the regular dungeon pieces, or it's faster to do it with more playable space. So what I did here is I paved down some floors in a kind of a weird pattern, right? Something that was taking advantage of the fact we can do it with passage walls. Let's start with let's put a doorway in here out of the gate, right? So let's say this is that big castle corridor we're making. It's going to terminate in this big, cool room. putting that in. I also take advantage of, right, so I put a nice focal point floor in here, and I put a trap floor in because it's fun. And we'll see in a moment why that helps us. So now that I've got this in, I'm just going to just throw passages all around the outside. So it helps doing these corners first helps because they are kind of cantankerous to get in sometimes, get in there. So we're going to just build the bones out like this. Everybody goes round and out. So we're going to, I have to lift everything up. If you lightly lift the floor as you slide the thing under, it should work. Easier to do when you're not on camera. So the first thing, let's look at this little alcove here. So we could just sort of pave all the way around it, or we could terminate it with a little, right, I'm just using the 1 inch dungeon wall there to give us a little more space. So we now have like a really neat, it's kind of hard to do with regular dungeon pieces. We have a really deep 1 inch wide alcove there. You could actually put a mini in if you want. I already broke my rule about putting these guys in first. We'll see, there's one there, one there. All right, so we're doing lots of little alcoves here because those are harder to do with regular dungeon pieces. They're harder to do with having them be playable. And we're going to come all the way around here. And these guys, we need a restraint. So these are pretty quick to do once you have your framework, your outline of the floor. It's pretty quick to just throw a bunch of passage walls on it. There, sign wall there. Okay, so this is our basic outline. All right, so we have our basic room here, but let's make it a little more exciting. So, well, the first thing we did is we put this spike floor in here, and one of the nice things about having all these playable squares is if the players want to avoid it, if they have some info, they know it's there. There's clean playable squares on either side, so they can avoid the trap and feel good about avoiding the trap or throwing a bad guy in it or whatever. So first good use of having passage walls, rather than if we were doing with the traditional dungeon pieces, we lose a little bit of the walls on either side and the squares become less playable, harder to pull this off. All right, now let's go into these so we've got these alcoves over here. Let's give people a reason to go in there. So I preemptively put, these are the magnetic passage walls, right? They have a little magnetic bit there. So I'm going to use those to let's throw a lever on the wall there and sort of tuck it into into each of the alcoves, right? So give them the reason to head on in there. Now we can see it. Right, so we got alcoves, boom, boom, with levers there. So there's a reason to kind of head in there. We could also put treasure in the far end or something interesting. Or you could also white stick. You could just take white stick and white stick the lever all the way in. It's like force them to go like all the way into the alcove. Makes the space interesting and usable. Let's do that. So what we want to do is, once again, we're taking advantage of the fact that we're using these passage walls on the outside, so it's letting us do things we couldn't do. So let's spice up these corners, right? We have these cool alcoves. Let's put something neat in there. So we're going to just take that plain floor out and let's put LED floor with a chromatic orb in there, right? So now there's some sort of magical trap or magical something. In there. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So now between these and the levers, we're turning this into like a bit of some sort of mystic puzzle. Who doesn't like a good mystic puzzle? Let's go even further with the mystics, right? So let's swap this thing out, put in the pool, put that in the middle. We'll put this. Right, so this has the insert. We could just have a plain old pool, or we could really spice it up with some crystals. And this has a little walkway out, so if we put that in front of here, it encourages them to walk along the spikes to get up there. Although then how would you actually get there in real life if they're, I guess you could step that way, but maybe it'd be more realistic to put it this way if the bad guy has it there and knows the trap's there, they're not going to want to walk there. Let's continue to mystic up. We're going to go into the corners here, right? So this would be, once again, really hard to do with regular dungeon walls. We're putting these pools all the way in the corner. By using the passage walls, we can then put any of our specialty floors all the way out into a corner rather than into the middle of the room. So boom, boom. So now we have a pretty magic-looking room. And if we want to, let's say we're trying to feed them to these traps. They know they can go this way on the side. Let's give them something more to deal with. We've got, these are magnetic walls in there. We can preemptively put let's put some crossbow. We have magnetic crossbow traps there that can trigger that. Now they get sort of a rock in a hard place no matter where they go, but maybe the levers turn them off or do something interesting. And then finally, if we want to, we can incorporate like some regular walls. Right now, everything except for this door is passage walls. If we want to introduce some elements, like this is one of my favorites, right? The grand arch wall. We can pop that in. So what we're going to do, pop these guys out. I'm going to pop this out. Just get out of the way. We could leave it there if we want. So we can just pop that in line. We could, if we didn't have these pools, we could put the little pillars in the corner to kind of dress up that line, but it looks pretty neat. You could pull this out and just do a 1x1 instead of the full 2x2 back there. That looks fine too. I want to keep the magnetic one here because then we can still sneak the crossbow in, right? So there can be a reveal. We can drop the crossbow traps in as they're triggered or shut off. Or maybe they start in, you have to use the levers to shut them off or something. I don't know. There's something fun you could do there. And then if we want to get even a little more grand, this is not a passage trick, but it just looks neat. Let's pop these. We're going to put a couple of daises underneath. Then we'll put our big grand arch wall there. Oops, the crossbow. And then we'll take a couple of stair jacks and put in the front. So now we've got stairs that lead down to this. And let's put something in the middle of the pool to really drive them in. And we'll take the cryptic key pedestal, we'll put that in there. And now we have a pretty cool encounter, right? This would be a hard thing to build using just our regular dungeon walls. So it's letting us do a very technical build with lots of playable space, and it's got a very unique feel. So you've got this in your arsenal. You can use these passage walls, and you can mix and match, right? This whole back wall could be regular dungeon walls. We could sort of, if you need to, you can swap. You could go in and out using dungeon walls and then switching over to passage walls as you need, as you like, if you want to pepper in some walls with some character. All right, so let's take all those techniques we learned, put them together into a sample build. So these are all segments of the things that we're showing, strung together to make, let's say it's a wizard's sanctum or a vault of knowledge, right? So there's a paranoid wizard and she wants to protect all of her powerful knowledge. If it falls into the wrong hands, terrible things could happen. So clearly the PCs need to come in and get it. So we have an entry area over here. We're doing the technique with the passage walls on the outside so we can connect right into these passages on the corner. Nice fortified door. Coming through here, we're faced with two ways to go. This way looks kind of like a dead end with just a decorative brazier over there. This way, looking down this hall, there's a beautiful long hallway, open arch, and something at the end can clearly catch the player's eye. It looks like treasure. So heading down this hallway, so this is just built standard passages. We got the four-way intersection, and then here we get to see we got the construct walls. They're baked in at the end of each passage. Really basic building. And then over here we've got the magnetic walls and a pair of the rune stones. So those are some glyphs. As soon as someone passes, breaks the plane of those glyphs, the trap is sprung, and so we'll have a couple of things happen. One, the portcullis drops down, wall of force pops into existence, and then we can swap out the constructs, animate, and go to attack. So now there's a fun, really tight combat situation. Like that could be, hopefully, a bloody battle, right? So the wizard is trying to protect her stuff. What's she protecting? Well, the end of this hall here. So we have two little alcoves using the LED alcoves and the snake floors there, just swapping out some decorative floors. And then we have a neat little bit here. This is a narrow passage stuck in there in line with a magnetic passage wall at the end, so we could put a seal of binding there. And then it's got the cryptic key pedestal. So that's the little treasure. That's the MacGuffin. There's a key here. So that's all those passage techniques we saw. So once the players get the key, and they've defeated all this stuff, boom, we come on back over here. So this hallway that looked like it was empty, maybe the brazier shoots fire out. It's another magical defense or something, but there's sure enough, if they look around, there's a secret door here. The key opens the secret door. And now we're in. All right, so what waits within? So we have a little like reading room here. There's a chair and tables, and some torches, and it's just passage. Normal passage in, narrow passage out, using the pillars on either side, just for decorative flair. We could have just used regular passage here, but it looked kind of nice. And then this is feeding us into more passages. In this case, we put we have a couple of cells in here. So the wizard, she's got some prisoners in there. Maybe she's going to get some information from the dwarf or harvest them for organs, and the same with the lizard folk, or maybe it's a dragonborn. But neat, doing the little tiny chambers with magnetic. We're using the magnetic passage walls in the back here, so we can put the manacles on them. So it's using these are regular dungeon corners, and then we're using the passage walls in the back to seal it off. So there's just enough space to get some minis in there, and then everything else is built in line. Now let's flip this builder out so we can look at the other side. All right, so now we flip around so we can see what's happening over here. Through this, we have a nice warded, another magically warded door here. Gets us into this area. And so we're using that double wide passage building technique in here. We've got the magnetic passage walls over here, so we can get some of that decor up in there. And it's kind of letting us put we have a lot of details. There's the obelisk, the trap. There's a lot of stuff in this space, but still tons of playable space because we're using the passages to get us a little more playable space. And we have this really neat sort of cascading feeling on these ends. Feels very ornate and decorative. And then coming over here, we got the stairs headed up using the double wide passages. And then the little trick we did over here is just taking putting the passages up on top of the dais is there, and then the stairs on top, so that we could have it sort of feel like the hallway is going up. We're covering the stairs on both sides with the passages. Helps make the illusion of it rising up, and sort of the idea that it's continuous and capped. And that leads us to our double door section over here. Coming through here, whoop, that opens up into this intricate room that we did, right? This is exactly what we did in the demo. It's all passage walls on the outside to make a very intricate chamber. And we have all the same gags, right? We have the spiked floor in there. We've got levers in each of these little alcoves to have players go in there. We've got the chromatic orbs. This is probably the wizard's, like, this is her divining pool or whatever, right? And she keeps this on her lock and key because it's very powerful magic. And we're using a vaulted arch here and a couple more trapdoor floors these are the side pools. Maybe apprentices sit here and power up what's in there, whatever. But it makes a very neat magical chamber over here. And it's something that would be very hard to do with our traditional dungeon pieces. These passages are letting us make some really intricate alcoves filled with all sorts of details. All right, so then the last little bit of this, since we backtrack our way out here, maybe the players didn't find what they're looking for. They've sort of searched high and low. There's one place left to go. So we're going to head back on over yonder. Regular passages here. We're using the magnetic wall. We've got another glyph on the wall there. And that'll trigger wall of fire, spring up. What's fun is sort of all of our wall of force, our wall of ice, our wall of thorns, our wall of fire, they're all 2 inches wide, so they all fit very nicely in the passages, sort of wherever you want to put them. And they also just look neat, like splash of color. So then we go, we're ending the passageway with an LED wall here, right? So we have a little light at the end, make it decorative. It's a very pleasing way to end this hallway. And then we're transitioning into a 1 inch wide corridor if we wanted to do the 1 inch wide passages gag. So what we did here is a whole bunch of little nooks, right? So there's ossuaries in each of these nooks. Maybe this is where she keeps bones for research, or maybe for divination or something. There's a cool collection of bones here, right? So these fun little nooks, they each have ossuaries. Maybe the players can search them for clues or something. And each one is just we're using just a 1x1 wall at the end to cap them off. And it gives just enough space in there to put a little piece of decor. So it wouldn't be super playable to get to a combat here. It must be set in the mood and right, feel like you're really discovering secret nooks, right? The little catacomb nooks. So that's the ossuaries. We're transitioning back into 2-inch wide over here. And to get us into, we're using the diagonal door here. And then a little fun gag here is 2 narrow passages between the diagonal doors to give us a 45-degree passage, which is just sort of pleasing, right? I think anytime you can go off at 45 degrees, it's kind of fun. So that opens us up into this tomb. Maybe the wizard keeps her dad's bones here or something, or maybe it's at the tomb waiting for her. Because what do we have inside? There's some treasure inside. Something for the players to discover. And this is an old resin piece from my old resin days. Fortunately, it's not in Dwarvenite, but you can sort of put anything in anything in this room with, like the ghost fire torches and the like. And then our final little gag is over here. We're using the arch wall with the ossuary, and we can pop it open to make a secret passage. It's regular passage. We're using a trapdoor floor in there with the stairs down, and then the end is it's the LED alcove there to give a little bit of light. And this is a thing, you can leave this off the table until you're, wait until the players discover the secret door and then drop it down for the last little surprise. And then that will lead down to the true treasure room, right, where the actual vault of knowledge is. That's what the players are probably looking for in mind there. All right, so that rounds up sort of all of these techniques into one build. This would be a really fun encounter to run. Hopefully this will inspire you in the sorts of builds you can make using the passages, not just for hallways, but also for rooms and nooks and the like. They're really fun for discovery, right? Really can lead your character to some really tiny little nooks and lets you build some very intricate rooms. So hopefully this will inspire you. Some of the many ways you can use passages.
And that concludes our Builder's Masterclass of Dungeon Passages. Hopefully this has inspired you in some of the many ways that you can build with these pieces. If you want more tips and tricks, check out the rest of our Dungeons videos in our Dungeons playlist. And if you enjoyed this video, think about liking, subscribing, and you can leave us a comment letting us know what other Builder's Masterclasses you'd like to see in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and now, it's back to the anvil.